What's good, YouTubers and YouTubettes? This is JB Sports back again with another one. Boxing writer Michael Carpenter is reporting on ESPN.com earlier today that negotiations have fallen by the wayside, have broken down between unified super middleweight champion Saul Canelo Alvarez and IBF super middleweight champion Caleb Sweet Hands Plant. This thing here reminds me of an old song. Remember that Another One Bites the Dust? Hey, I stay too. Another one bites the dust. And another one's done. And another one's done. Another one bites the dust. Another big fight bites the dust. Damn, earlier we had what? Tyson Fury, Anthony Joshua. That was a big fight that bit the dust. Here's another fight that bit the damn dust, man. Man, I got, just look at my videos, man. Go back in my archives and look at my videos. I told you this fight wasn't happening, man. Ain't surprised at all, man. I was talking about Canelo versus Bivol. I said that was going to be the fight, man. Just look at my video I did about a week or two ago. I saw this coming from a mile away, man. I saw this coming from a mile away. A lot of people shocked, can't believe this is what's going on, but I don't know why they're shocked. I don't know why they can't believe this is happening. And a lot of them are in denial right now, saying, oh, it's going to happen. They just posturing right now. The fight's going to happen, man. He only got 7.5 weeks. Who else he going to choose as another opponent? He got to fight Sweet Hands next. Man, Dimitri Bivol is the next fight. That fight's going down September 18th. T-Mobile Arena, Las Vegas, Nevada, a.k.a. Sin City. That's what's going to go down next. It's kind of rich, man, when you read this article, man. There's just so many things, man. Maybe it's true. I'm not in the negotiations, so I really don't know exactly what's going on, but I got a good idea what's going on. I'm putting 2 and 2 together, and I'm coming up with 4. I ain't coming up with 8 or 12. I'm putting 2 and 2 together, and I'm coming up with 4. Look here, man. Now, first of all, they say Eddie Reynoso, who's the trainer of Canelo Alvarez, is the lead negotiator that's negotiating this fight, this big fight, this high-level fight, this fight that involves 2 big-time fighters, this fight that's going to generate huge sums of money. You need a guy that's never negotiated a fight of this magnitude. What he been putting on fights over there in Guadalajara, Mexico? He's probably been putting money up for those fights for some of his fighters that he's been training, him and Canelo, under Canelo promotion. But this is a whole different animal, a whole different situation. You need people that's been involved in big fights, leading the negotiations. That's why I find it hard to believe that Eddie Reynoso was the lead negotiator in these negotiations. Because if he was, then that's not a good idea. Let me just put it to you like that. That's not a good idea. I'm pretty much sure that Eddie Hearn had his hand in the negotiations. He's kind of quiet right now. He's quiet as a church mouse. You ain't hearing him talk about nothing. He ain't releasing no statement. All he's doing is releasing statements to Michael Carpenter, because all that source that Michael Carpenter is referring to in that article, that source is Eddie Hearn. Make no mistake about it. That source is Eddie Hearn. Now, Canelo-Plant came out with a statement saying that Canelo Alvarez was asking for the sun, the moon, and the stars, basically. He was asking for everything. He wanted $40 million plus guaranteed. Al Heyman said, sure. Then he wanted pay-per-view upside and a live gate percentage of the money. Al Heyman said, no problem. Canelo-Plant said, no problem, you got it. Then he wanted a rematch clause. Now, unification fight shouldn't be, not even a unification, it's a unification, it's an undisputed fight. That shouldn't be a rematch clause. But he wanted a rematch clause only if he loses. If he wins, he can ride off into the sunset and look to fight other opponents. But if he loses the fight, he wants an immediate rematch. Now, that could have been a problem in the contract right there, because if Canelo-Plant wins the first fight, I'm pretty much sure in the second fight, he wanted at least a 50-50 deal. Maybe Canelo and his team didn't want to give him that. See, when this rematch clause, that's pretty much Eddie Hearn modus operandi. They let me know that Eddie Hearn was involved in the negotiations, because every time Anthony Joshua fights, he's going to have a rematch clause in case he loses. And now that Canelo Alvarez, who Eddie Hearn has promoted his last 2 fights, but he's free from Eddie Hearn allegedly, but Eddie Hearn is actually his manager, his advisor. They put on the show together 4 weeks ago over there in Guadalajara, Mexico. Eddie Reynoso was so happy and so grateful to Eddie Hearn for allowing some fighters that were fighting in the shadows, basically, fighting in obscurity, allow for them to get a little shine, get a little exposure. And they've got a lot of gratitude as far as Eddie Hearn goes. Eddie Hearn knows that, so Eddie Hearn is leading in the negotiations. Eddie Hearn is putting his 2 cents in, putting the proverbial battery in the back of Eddie Reynoso and basically telling Eddie Reynoso what to ask Al Haymon in the PBC. So when you come up with these 11th hour demands about a rematch clause, that should have been some of the first things you were talking about early in the negotiations. Then Canelo-Plant said that Canelo Alvarez was dragging his feet. You know, I find it kind of hard to believe that when he beat Billy Joe Saunders, that fight was May 8th, and it was like June went by, there wasn't no discussion of the fight, and then July, around about the middle part of July, Eddie Hearn came out and said, yeah, we just started negotiating with Team Plant. I'm like, damn, that's 2 months. Why did y'all start negotiating right after the Billy Joe Saunders fight? He was so excited about fighting Canelo-Plant and becoming undisputed. That's all he talked about after the fight. So y'all should have got on that like that next week. You know, give him a week or two to, you know, he's getting mad on his honeymoon. But since he get back from the honeymoon, y'all need to be starting on that ASAP. It seemed like it wasn't no, you know, sense of urgency for trying to get the fight done. You know, you wait until the 11th hour, now you're 7.5 weeks out. The fight's not going to get the proper promotion. The drug testing is going to be limited now. You know, that's another thing that Canelo-Plant wasn't too thrilled about, but it's just a lot of just shady things, man. This is what gives credence to people that say Canelo Alvarez always got to have an unfair advantage in his fights. He's always got to have his opponent behind the old proverbial 8-ball. You know what I'm saying? He always got to have them basically 4 rounds down going into the fight. You know what I'm saying? So you know he's an A-side fighter. You know he's a cash cow of boxing. So he has subliminal influence on judges and referees. If there's any kind of thing as the fight being competitive, he's gonna get the justice. You know, he's gonna get the decision. You got to pretty much knock him out. If his fight is semi-competitive, he's gonna get the decision, man. Everybody knows that going into the fight. Look at the Floyd Mayweather Jr. Well, Floyd Mayweather Jr. won at bare minimum 10 rounds, probably won 11 rounds. You know, you give Canelo Alvarez maybe 1 or 2 rounds at best, and one judge had to fight 6 rounds of 6. That was early on in Canelo Alvarez's career. That was first time. That was early on when he was coming onto the scene as far as being a pay-per-view attraction. He hadn't established himself at that, but people saw the future. People saw that he had that it factor, being a Latino fighter, being a Latino fighter, a red-headed Latino fighter, you know, with a little Irish in him. You know, a guy that was a very sharp, accurate puncher, a guy that had great upper body movement, a guy that was a fan-friendly style of fighter. So they saw the handwriting on the wall that this guy was going to be a pay-per-view star. So they was already laying the groundworks, and they would have definitely screwed, you know, arguably one of the greatest fighters of all time, Floyd Mayweather Jr. In that fight, if Floyd would have struggled with him in any type of way, he would have probably lost that fight. So this is nothing new here, ladies and gentlemen. I believe Eddie Hearn played a major part in this fight falling apart. I think Eddie Hearn threw a monkey wrench in it. I don't know that for a fact. I don't know that 100% because I wasn't involved in the negotiations. But I look at past history and I look at different clues. Like when I heard rematch clause, like I said, that's Eddie Hearn's modus operandi. That's what he loves to do when it involves his fight. He wants to basically put all his top fighters, when they're fighting a quote-unquote top opponent, he basically wants to put all his fighters in a 2-fight deal. That's basically what the AJ Fury fight was. That was a 2-fight deal. Only difference was it didn't matter who won the first fight. It was going to be a second fight. And as far as Canelo Alvarez goes with Canelo-Plant is, basically if he loses, he gets the rematch immediately. If he wins, he can rise off into the sunset. So that's the only difference. I wonder, did Canelo Alvarez have a rematch clause against Billy Joe Saunders? I assume he did. And that's because, you know, Close Eddie would have been down for that because that would have been another fight with 2 fighters both fighting under basically the Matchroom Boxing banner, you know, and fighting on the zone, you know, an app that he's still trying to make it big here in America. Hasn't made it big here in America, but he's still trying. You know, he came in here thinking he was going to be able to get a lot of fighters signed to the zone. That $1 billion deal that he had when he first came over here, thought it was going to be the takeover over here in the United States. It didn't work out quite like that for Eddie Hearn, but he's still trying to get it done, man. He's trying to keep basically the top 2 fighters up under his thumb, Anthony Joshua and Canelo Alvarez. Yeah. Yeah, so we will see what happens. We will see what transpires, man. But it just, you know, I just look at things that happened in the past, and I just kind of tie things in together, man. I look at the whole AJ Wilder negotiations, how Eddie Hearn played around with the contract, sending a contract over to Team Wilder with no date, no venue, because he really didn't want to make that fight happen. He wanted Anthony Joshua to fight Alexander Povetkin. You heard his father, Barry Hearn, a.k.a. Papa Hearn, said that Anthony Joshua was on a 10-fight plan. Why settle for $50 million when you can make $100 million, $150 million down the road? They convinced AJ to turn down that fight. Maybe AJ didn't have no say-so in who he fights, because I have never heard AJ say that he want to fight this particular opponent and Eddie Hearn go make the fight. It's pretty much whatever Eddie Hearn says is going to be Anthony Joshua's next fight. He pretty much sets the stage for AJ fights. You know, he said AJ going to fight Usyk. They don't want to give up the belt. He's going to fight Usyk next. Now they talking about if they beat Usyk, they're going to fight Tyson Fury next in February of 2022. Never mind the fact that Fury first got to get by Deontay Wilder, which is no foregone conclusion. They don't have the same energy. They don't have the same motivation to fight Wilder. And I'm going to tell you something right now. If Wilder beats Tyson Fury, Eddie Hearn not going to make that fight next between Anthony Joshua and Deontay Wilder. Because Eddie Hearn's not going to put his top two fighters in any fight where he thinks that they have anything less than a 75% chance of winning. So when you look at AJ Wilder, best case scenario, you can say that's a 50-50 fight. Best case scenario. So, and with Wilder's right hand, and he's starting to use that jab. I like what I'm seeing in his training footage with new trainer Malik Scott. He's looking like he's improving. He's like he's a two-handed fighter now, and he's a much dangerous fighter if he's a two-handed fighter, because even with that one hand, you see what he did in the heavyweight division. He was dominating. The only person that beat him soundly was Tyson Fury, who in my opinion is the number one fighter in the heavyweight division. So now you get this guy that's now a two-handed fighter, a guy that's got not just only a right hand, but a guy that's got a left jab, got a check left hook, a jab to the body, throwing two-punch combinations, just not looking for that one shot. You're looking at a dangerous opponent. Better footwork, you're looking at a dangerous opponent. So he's not looking to ever or anytime soon make AJ Wilder. And he's not looking to make Canelo versus Plant, because quiet as kept. That fight ain't no... I heard people say, oh man, Canelo stopped Caleb-Plant in 5-6 rounds. Man, that's ASA 9, ASA 10, ASA 11, and ASA 12. To me, Caleb-Plant is the second best super middleweight in the division behind Canelo Alvarez. You got number one against number two. This is a very competitive fight. Caleb-Plant is a very skilled boxer. He got underrated power. He is a true super middleweight. Not like Billy Joe Saunders, who probably should be fighting at middleweight, but he don't take care of himself in between fights, so that forced him to move up to super middleweight. This is a true super middleweight guy, a guy that's naturally bigger than Canelo Alvarez, a guy that's got a real good jab. Only thing that you got to worry about is will Caleb-Plant fade in the second half of that fight, because you know Canelo Alvarez is going to bring that pressure. He's going to bring that pressure, and he's very patient with the pressure. And he's, you look at the Sergey Kovalev fight, because I had him down in that fight. Sergey Kovalev was beating him with one punch, a jab, basically winning that fight. But Canelo Alvarez kept closing the distance, kept closing the distance. Then when he landed his money shot, he got Kovalev up out of there. That's what Caleb-Plant got to be better at going into that fight, if the fight ever happens. He's got to be better in the championship rounds. He's got to be better in the second half of that fight. He can't fade like he faded in the Caleb Truax fight, and to a certain extent, he faded in the Jose Ukitake fight. But his power, his underrated power, actually bailed him out in the second half of that fight, which gave him the win in that fight. He's going to have to fight even better than that fight. He can't slow down like he did against Ukitake, because if we do that, then Canelo Alvarez is going to do damage. He's going to do damage in a major way. But the fight's not going to happen no time soon. Eddie Hearn wants to keep Canelo Alvarez over there on the zone, fighting European fighters. So look for Dimitri Bivol to be the next fight for Canelo Alvarez, September 18th, T-Mobile Arena, Las Vegas, Nevada, a.k.a. Sin City. And Caleb-Plant, he's got two options. Probably really got one option, as David Benavidez has got a fight lined up with Jose Ukitake August 28th in the home of the Western Conference champion, the Phoenix Suns. They'll be fighting there, so I think that'll be too quick of a turnaround to ask him to fight, probably a fight that probably would take place sometime in what I would say November, December. He might can make that. September, October, November, December. He got 4 months. Benavidez could make that. But I would see Canelo-Plant maybe fighting sometime in December in a pay-per-view fight versus Jamal Charlo. Because what it's going to boil down to, you got one pay-per-view fight in October. Basically going to have two. You're going to have Wilder Fury 3, which is a PBC promoted fight, October 9th. October 30th, October 31st, you will have Gervonta Tank Davis fighting in a pay-per-view fight. It could be Rolando Raleigh Romero. It could be Gary Russell Jr. It still could be Jojo Diaz. Ooh, yeah. It could be one of those three opponents. But I think the top two have a better chance than the last guy. The last guy is up on a different promotional company and fighting on a different platform. So that fight will be harder to make. The first two fights are in-house fights. So we will see what happens, and we will see what transpires. But I will look for Sweet Hands from Cashville, Tennessee to take on Jamal Charlo in a pay-per-view fight to take place in December. I can see that fight going down in December. As in November, they're going to have, if everything lines up right, if the negotiations run smoothly, if both parties agree to the fight, it's still a big if, but they're going to have Terrence Bud Crawford versus Sean Showtime Porter in another collaboration between ESPN and Fox pay-per-view, similar to the one for the second and third fight of Deontay Wilder, Tyson Fury. So those fights will be lined up. So you have a pay-per-view in August with Manny Pacquiao versus Errol Spence Jr. And then in September, I guess PBC might not have no pay-per-view. Well, they could maybe put Canelo-Plant in September. They would put him a week after the Canelo fight. Because Canelo's going to basically be on the Zone app, even though the Zone pay-per-view will be showing that fight too. But it's not, that's for the older fans of Canelo to watch the fight, basically. But maybe they could do Canelo-Plant and Jamal Charlo September 25th. But that's going to be a tough ask coming after Canelo fight. I would actually want them to put that fight in a month where they got that month all to themselves. And maybe put that fight in December. You got Canelo fighting in September. You got Spence and Pacquiao fighting in August. You got Wilder and Fury fighting in October. And you got Gervonta Tank Davis fighting in October. So that's two pay-per-views in October. And then you got Terrence Crawford and Sean Showtime Porter potentially fighting in November. So I think that would make Canelo-Plant and Jamal Charlo be slated to take place in December. So we will see what happens and we will see what transpires. I'm about to lose my voice. But Eddie Hearn, in my opinion, threw a monkey wrench in these negotiations. He put his 2 cents in. You can best believe that Eddie Reynoso, who has never negotiated a fight of this magnitude ever, I don't think he was just basically doing this on his own. I'm pretty much sure he was taking advice from Eddie Hearn. And that's what happened, man. This fight basically got sabotaged, like I told you it was going to do. Eddie Hearn did not really want this fight to happen specifically on Fox pay-per-view. Now, I think he probably would have been more receptible to the fight taking place on the Zone, but he really, in all honesty, wanted Canelo to fight one of his fighters. He wanted to be an in-house fight where he don't have to share the revenue and he can keep everything in-house, man, and help promote and pump up the Zone. And hopefully the Zone will finally take over in America like he claimed it was going to do when he first had that $1 billion deal with the app. So we will see what happens and we will see what transpires. But let me know your thoughts about Canelo and Plant falling by the wayside. As Eddie Hearn says, hell to the now. The fight's not happening. And you ain't going nowhere. You gonna stay here right by my side. Yeah, he gonna be right up under his thumb like Anthony Joshua, man. Top 2 fighters in boxing, man. Eddie Hearn basically got them fighting under his Matchroom Boxing banner. So that's one thing he can always say he got above other promoters, I guess. He don't have the depth. He don't have the roster of a PBC or even the roster of a Top Rank. Or probably even the roster of a Golden Boy promotion, if you look at a full roster. But he has the top 2 guys in the sport of boxing, man. And he has both of those guys pretty much following him down the Yellow Book Road like the Tin Man and the Scarecrow. Basically following him and letting him lead the way, man. And We'll see what happens, and we will see what transpires. But let me know your thoughts about this fight falling by the wayside and what you think about Canelo versus Bivol September the 18th, because that will be the next fight, and what you think about Charlo versus Plant maybe in December. Let me know your thoughts, and hit the like button if you like the content of this video, and subscribe to JB Sports, the man, the myth, the legend. And I holla.